Remember that they're changing my voice. This video is about Lamentations chapter 2. It is about the fall of Israel with no way back, like it says in Isaiah 24. The earth falls, never to rise again. Never to rise again. That part is key there. It never rises again. Heaven and earth pass away. They pass away because the Spirit of God leaves everything that the remaining human beings are able to contact. So I'm going to start with Luke 10, verse 18. We'll get right into it. He replied, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Lamentations 2:1. How the Lord has covered daughter Zion with the cloud of his anger. He has hurled down the splendor of Israel from heaven to earth. He has not remembered his footstool in the day of his anger. So again, in Paul's letters, people who are supposed to, serve God, everyone's supposed to serve God, they rally to me. They're gathered up in the crowds of God's anger. They say, hey, I don't love the world, like 1 John 2:15, don't love the world, anything in the world. And they leave, and the world transforms into hell. And that's why in Job, it talks about, or somewhere in the Bible, it talks about how when the cloud passes away, the sins are swept away. See, the sins are swept away like a cloud, because the earth is transformed into hell because of the cloud of God's anger, and they drink the cup of God's wrath, and they have the filthy, polluted waters of the prostitute and the beast and the Antichrist and the devil, the ancient serpent. So again, Jerusalem in the sky, in Paul's letters, is the mother of the righteous. Jerusalem has a place in this physical world, right? And not in the spiritual realm with God, right? Not really the sky, but the spiritual realm. Okay, so the one in this world is evil. Israel in this world. That's what the Bible says in Paul's letter. And Paul was a Jew. For those of you who want to cry anti-Semitic because you put mere human rules and corrupt politicians and rapists in church and the mosques and synagogues, you put what they want above the truth and above moral precision. Just like when you date fucking scum and shun the righteous. You reap what you sow. What you have bred, your offspring are going to have to be around. They're going to have to be and be around. And it was dumb, 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 dumb. Which leads us to the next verse. Without pity, the Lord has swallowed up all the dwellings of Jacob. In his wrath, he has torn down the strongholds of daughter Judah. He has brought her kingdom and its princes down to the ground in dishonor. So this is a vision. A lot of times it's talking about, to some degree, what's going on at the time, right? But it's also a vision of the future. It's a prophecy, right? Prophecy. In fierce anger, he has cut off every horn of Israel. He has withdrawn his right hand at the reproach of the enemy. He has burned in Jacob like a flaming fire that consumes everything around it. Now, some of you might say, well, why would it have to do with what's going on at the time? Because when they see Israelites getting punished, they say, what is this an omen of? What is this a sign of? They said in the future, God's going to finish what he's doing at the time. God's going to finish what he's doing at the time. Okay, so it's Babylonian captivity, or maybe, Persia or Rome. God is going to finish what he started. He said, you're going to captivity because you're sinning. We look at the story with Joseph, right? How they betrayed him. And after that, they go into captivity. So they keep sinning. And eventually, they finish what they started. It's like Christ, as a character in the story, said. He said, finish what you started. Now, what did they start? They started the rebellion. And they finish what they started when the earth sinks never to rise again after they finish screening me out. Not that they're smart enough to care, because they've bred indifference. They're desensitized to things that they should be sensitive to. Their hearts are callous, they're dull, etc. is what the Bible is saying, will say. In fierce anger, he has cut off every horn of Israel, all their spiritual strength. He has withdrawn his right hand at the approach of the enemy. He has burned in Jacob like a flaming fire that consumes everything around it. So as they kept insisting that they're chosen, is what the story is saying is going to happen, and what we see happening, God burned them where it matters most. As they started acting like some kind of Greek society nerd instead of obeying God through me. Okay, as I approached them as their enemy, right? It says God himself is their enemy. It says that in many places in the Bible. Okay, so I will fight against you. Okay, they spiritually burn up. Okay, when you burn up because when your soul burns because you reject moral principle, your worth burns, right? You become low down, dirty, no good. You get it. Okay. Now here we go. The next verse, in fact. Like an enemy, he has strung his bow. His right hand is ready. Like a foe, he has slain all who were pleasing to the eye. He has poured out his wrath like fire on the tent of daughter Zion. The Lord is like an enemy. Wow. He has swallowed up Israel. He has swallowed up all her palaces and destroyed her strongholds. He has multiplied mourning and lamentation for daughter Judah. That's why it's called lamentation. It says they are going to weep. They're going to mourn. The whole world is going to mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. Now, if you're shallow, sniveling, namby-pamby, dweeb, or some arrogant corporate person, you probably don't get it. If you're a racist, white cultural fanatic, LGBT person in a frat or something, you probably have no clue about this. But right now, the world is mourning. The richest people in the world are mourning. That's why they're acting strange. When the brain is stressed, it causes people to act like weirdos. That's why when people get turned out in cults and fraternities and sororities, okay, they start acting like some weird Simpson character. But this mourning that they're going through takes on a particular kind of proportion. Takes on new meaning. Okay, so someone just drove by on the motorcycle, so I want to sing slower, but where was I here? He has laid waste his dwelling like a garden. He has destroyed his place of meeting. The Lord has made Zion forget her appointed festivals and her Sabbaths. In his fierce anger, he has spurned both king and priest, so they don't have a king. So God says, no, you are not to be in charge. No, you cannot connect to God. Your prayers are detestable because you forsook the instruction and correction from God. And you've been doing all these things, slave, master, all this kind of, and then they say, then you have the nerve to say that you want it to be law. And to some degree it is. That people can't criticize the Jewish people. The whole Bible basically is about criticizing the Jewish people. It starts with the story of the beginning, and it says this story is connected to the Jews in the story being chosen and then being rejected by God. So they relive that eating the apple again and again and again. And eventually God says, look, there is no such thing as an everlasting covenant. Not with those who rebel. You can't just do whatever you want. And the kingdom of heaven, like Christ as a character in the story says, is taken away from you. And if you insist you still have it, you're mocking God, and it says stop mocking or your chains will become heavier. There's no other way to look at this. If you interpret the Bible as the Jews sinned the whole time and they still maintain the kingdom, you've lost your fucking mind. Dionysian ritual madness is your religion and not universal pinpoint and moral precision. You are a Zeusite and not an Israelite, so to speak. Okay. The Lord has rejected his altar and abandoned his sanctuary. He has given the walls of her palaces into the hands of the enemy. They have raised a shout in the house of the Lord as on the day of an appointed festival. So in the story, again, this story is based on another story, right? I do not believe that the Bible is literal. I don't believe that the Jews were ever chosen, okay? But what it's saying is because these people were so insistent, like so many groups in the world, where they make themselves the center of a religious story, whenever a group does that, without actually being the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, okay, they need to be told in a certain way one could argue. They need to be kind of say, okay, well, maybe you were chosen, but look what you've done, right? They need to be told like this instead of just told the truth. No, you weren't ever chosen. It was Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order. That's why they said you're the same as the Cushites under me, because they knew that the idea of certain African martial artists, kings, were the chosen of God. So they need to be told that you had your chance. And your arrogance that you have right now is why the kingdom was taken, never to be given back. Because you and your ancestors kept going on and on with your sin. Okay? And if you believe in your heart that you were chosen, look what you've done with that. Because the one who's much is given, much is expected. So if you believe much is given, okay, you're not loving God with all your heart if you're not being more morally precise than you are by far, by far, by far. Okay. Okay. The Lord determined to tear down the wall around daughter Zion. He stretched out a measuring line and did not withhold his hand from destroying. He made ramparts and walls lament together. They wasted away. Her gates have sunk into the ground. Their bars have been broken and destroyed. Her king and her princes are exiled among the nations, sunk. Okay. The law is no more, and the prophets no longer find visions from the Lord. The elders of the daughter Zion sit on the ground in silence. They have sprinkled dust on their heads and put on sackcloth. The young women of Jerusalem have bowed their heads to the ground. My eyes fail from weeping. I am in torment within. My heart is poured out on the ground because my people are destroyed, because children and infants faint in the streets of the city. So now what's it say? You think they were literally doing that? You think they're literally doing that now? No. Maybe some cult ritual or something. What's happened is they failed to be women. So they're brought low to the ground. That's what that bowing symbolizes. They're not bowing in reverence to God. Okay? In a sense, they are bowing out of guilt and desperation, but they're not bowing in obedience out of reverence. Okay? So they fail to be women. The children have no hope, right? They faint in the city streets. That's what it's saying. They say to their mothers, where is bread and wine, right? Where is the bread of God's presence? Where is the wine of people who are loyal to God, dedicating their lives to God, whether they're martyred or not? So where's the bread and the wine? As they faint like the wounded in the streets of the city, as their lives ebb away in their mother's arms. You see how there's no way to explain this without explaining it the way I'm explaining it. That's the only way to explain it. You can't, tiptoe through the tools with this. You have to say the Jews were wrong, they are wrong, and they always will be wrong, or else you're lying about what it's saying. And, I'm going to give you an example. Would you say the Nazi, there was a gentleman, he's some kind of person, who knows what Hitler, according to history, right? There was a person named Schindler. He was a Nazi, right? He made a list, and he freed some of the Jews and so on and so forth. There's a movie I saw when I was younger, don't really remember it. But let's assume that he was somewhat of a decent guy. Would you say the Nazis were a decent group of people because of one person, or two people, or a few thousand people? No, you wouldn't. And neither would people in ancient times when it comes to people who are sinning as a nation. And every once in a while someone says, stop sinning, you're not doing what God wants, and they saw him in half or something. And they stone him. You can't reward wickedness. God will not be mocked. You reap what you sow. You cannot be established in wickedness. Isaiah 57, the righteous are taken away to be spared from evil. What evil? The Jerusalem of this world is what it's saying in Galatians 4. They're being taken away to be spared from the Neo-Roman system, the Judeo-Neo-Roman system, if you will. That's the fact of the matter. And now some white supremacists, some Jewish supremacists, LGBT, they might all team up together, send him a box of Kleenex and say, he can't say that. He cannot say that. But in their churches, they say everyone's a sinner. I've seen rabbis say things to the effect of everyone makes mistakes, da-da-da-da-da. So they'll say, hey, they partake in evil. How are you going to admit that you partake in evil, and then say, I can't point it out as the one person who's blameless? That's fucking retarded. So sinners can say people are sinners. And it's implied that when you have more money and power, that your sin is more amplified. And who has more money and power than whites, Jews, and LGBT people, at least in the West? Fairness is admitting the truth and pointing to the reality of the situation. Racism is pretending that you want people to explain things in a way that makes us all equal or doesn't make a race feel bad, while you subtly try to make sure that other races are demonized and stigmatized to the point that people date towards your race and people with the characteristics of your race. That is fucking pathetic. Okay. My eyes fail from weeping. I am in torment within. My heart is poured out on the ground because my people are destroyed, because children and infants faint in the streets of the city. They say to their mothers, where is bread and wine? As they faint like the wounded in the streets of the city, as their lives ebb away in their mother's arms. What can I say to you? Can I compare you, daughter Zion? To what can I liken you? Then I may comfort you, virgin daughter Zion, your wound is as deep as the sea, who can heal you? So what can I compare him to? What can I compare the modern whites and Jews and LGBT to? What can I compare the token minorities, thugs with no higher cause, regular people keeping their heads down, who don't have the heart enough to obey the greatest commandment, which is loving God with all your heart, which is not keeping your head down. Matthew 10 says, what is whispered in your ear, declare from the rooftops. Do not be afraid of them. Proverbs, the fear of man will prove to be a snare. Okay? They're like people who, out of cowardice, like the German people in World War II, support this kind of modern Jewish, Zion Nazi, kind of Roman Nazi, feminazi, conservative Nazi, democratic, libertarian Nazi sort of state. What can I compare all the governing class to? Fanatic, childish, sissy, cowardly Nazis that refuse to do what's right out of greed and lust for the despicable and laughable products that are available for greedy people to buy. The cars they sell are sissy these days. The clothes, the houses, the art. They want all art to be a mix of white, Jewish, and LGBT. So you get this kind of circus, right? This kind of, Judeo-white circus nation and culture. And it's not just the left. It's across the board. Look at their suits. Look at their posture. Look at their faces. Look at the news. Look at the businessmen. Look at the arrogance written all over their faces. It's like the arrogant people behind the circus and the circus clowns in the circus. Circus strongmen. What have you? Mere actors. What is a demon? One definition is a skilled performer. Look it up if you don't believe me. I posted that definition in one of my videos before a while back. Okay. So it says, your wound is as deep as the sea. Who can heal you? Only God through me. The visions of your prophet were false and worthless. They did not expose your sin to ward off your captivity. The prophecies they gave you were false and misleading. So you see, conservative, Democrats, libertarians, the churches, mosques, synagogues, they're not explaining things in a way that points to me. So they're worthless. Well, how was a nerd described as worthless? Beast is beta scramble. Said the visions of your prophets were false and worthless. Now, what is a vision? As I describe things a certain way, you have a certain vision. You say, I can see what he's saying, or you don't. If you do, then you rally to me. If you don't, and you kind of see it, your vision is false and worthless. It doesn't allow you to change course, so you're blind and lame. That's why they put blind and lame together. All who pass your way clap their hand at you. They scoff and shake their heads at daughter Jerusalem. Is this a city that was called the perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth? So you see in Isaiah where it says, that they're oaks. They're supposed to be the Jews, the true Jews, who aren't the people who call themselves Jews, are oaks to display the Lord's splendor. And they're not black Hebrew Israelites. They're not anyone else. It's the righteous. It's just me at this time. My parents are blameless. Displaying God's splendor. And people responded like fucking cowards. Like people raised by monsters and demons. They responded by saying, cover up his look, change his voice. Try to make him sound like us. Try to make him sound like us. Try to make him sound like a white preacher who is taken more seriously than the more obvious clown preachers out there. That's how they responded to their utter disgrace. Trying to impress gay people, lesbians, bisexuals, trannies, racist conservatives, nerds, brutes. Who are they trying to impress? The farm animals? Themselves? And their madness? Who are they trying to impress? And why did it matter to them so much that they insult God? Why they do it? For a bootlicker's pittance and lead their families to hell. The city, which is the collective spirits of people, right? It represents for the collective spirits the center, right? The center, the heart. Okay? And the king is the true heart, but it's the heart in that sense. Okay? It was supposed to be perfection, right? Holy, pure. Do we see that anywhere on this planet other than me? No. I'm the result of perfection made bitter. Justice made bitter, but still just. All your enemies open their mouths wide against you. They scoff and gnash their teeth and say, we have swallowed her up. This is the day we have waited for. We have lived to see it. The Lord has done what he planned. He has fulfilled his word, which he decreed long ago. He has overthrown you without pity. He has let the enemy gloat over you. He has exalted the horn of your foes. So as it says that God is their enemy. And he says they let the enemy gloat over them. But again, can Babylon gloat over Jerusalem when they're going to share the same fate? It's even in the book and people see it coming a mile away? Yes and no. Paul's letter says, boast in the Lord. I boast in the Lord that I have conquered Jerusalem. I have conquered Rome. I have conquered the planet. And the more of a demon and an adversary of God they are, the more I boast. If it was this race or that race or this religion or that religion that was the main adversary of God, I say, I conquered those cowards. So according to their deeds, we'll say whoever it may be, to not break the rules on YouTube, I have conquered those fucking traitors, those pompous, pretentious, sniveling vipers, those evildoers, those dogs, conquered. And they resorted to hacking my brain like a bitch. I tell you the truth from God. In 1 Samuel 17, if it said that Goliath resorted to trying to hack David's brain like a fucking bitch, like a fraternity pussy, nobody would respect it. Nobody who's worth a damn would respect it. They say, what the fuck is wrong with those bitch-ass Philistines? And what the fuck they would say? They would say, that's genius, man. You won, man. You're an occultist, bro. That's fucking retarded. That is some kid push bullshit. And I conquered those pussies. And they resorted to that like a bitch. Period. It causes some disturbance in the sound. When I raise my voice, I apologize for that. It's important that you understand why I get angry. I'm the most loving and caring person ever. They change my voice. They try to play me out. They reinforce the rape by deception system. They're massacring people, raping them, mass drugging, what have you. And I don't miss that for a minute. So when I'm reading it and I'm very sensitive and I think about these ideas, these demons are trying to attack God through my heart, through my mind, through my soul. They can't do it. God cannot be harmed, but it makes you mad nonetheless. And many, many things make me mad. I'm right to say it that way, believe it or not. And I'm not racist. So let's just wrap this up here. The hearts of the people cry out to the Lord. Your walls of daughter Zion, let your tears flow like a river day and night. Give yourself no relief, your eyes no rest. Arise, cry out in the night. As the watches of the night begin, pour out your heart like water in the presence of the Lord. Lift up your hands to him for the lives of your children who faint from hunger at every street corner. So people have forsaken their families. And I'm the King of Kings, so I care about what has happened here. And I'm appalled, and I'm disgusted, and I'm heartbroken. And heartache interferes with connecting to God's Spirit, especially when you're fumed and poisoned, but it also can bring you closer to God. Who, what, when, where, how, why. So I pour out my heart while these people are doing horrible things. Things that should make you want to yell. And they fume me and poison me so I sound weird when I do yell at times. Okay, and I know at times I don't sound weird. And they try to use that to try to play me out. Let me wrap this up. I'm almost out of time here. It's going to take a while to upload this as it is. Lord. Okay, so there's a typo there. I actually typed this out. So verse 20. Something, Lord, and consider whom have you ever treated like this? Should women eat their offspring, their children they have cared for? Should priests and prophet be killed in the sanctuary of the Lord? For the same reason they call blood money. It's not actually blood, right? It's money. Same reason you know them by their fruits. These people aren't all farmers, right? So they're eating the fruit of their womb. They're devouring, they're swallowing their children's souls, their ability to be right with God, right? The word soul, S-O-L, okay, means son in Spanish, right? And in Latin, I believe. And S-O-U-L is your soul, and son, S-U-N, is the plain word for S-O-N, because it also connects to the Son of God. A symbol of the Son of God also stands for people selling their son, right? The SOL is like the SOUL, and the SUN is like the SON. So they're selling their sons to the devil by their cultural complicity, what have you. Should priest and prophet be killed in the sanctuary of the Lord, right? Their spirits destroyed because of their mockery, what have you. Young and old lie together in the dust of the streets. My young men and young women have fallen by the sword. You have slain them in the day of your anger. You have slaughtered them without pity. And God is right too. God is always right. And you summon to a feast day, so you summon against me terrors on every side. In the day of the Lord's anger, no one escaped or survived. Those I cared for and reared, my enemy has destroyed. So when we see this story, at times it seems very clear that the person who wrote it is actually saddened by what has happened to these people. And it refers to a bunch of people at the same time, right? Tribe is the play on words for tribe. So who is it referring to? To some degree, it's referring to people who identify as Jews, white Jews, Ethiopian Jews, South African, Igbo, who identify as Jews. To some degree, it refers to the Hebrew Israelites, right? Anyone who kind of takes on this way of thinking and comes into the story and says to themselves, hey, that happened to me. To some degree, it happened to all of your people. Okay, because the people who wrote the story made themselves the center of God's story unfairly. And people tend to do that. So as the mind has to reconcile these things. But what is it actually about? It's about attractive women, almost first and foremost, who have betrayed the top martial arts ever possible. Okay, and their children, right? It was one of the last things Jesus said as a character in the story in Luke 23. He said, daughters of Jerusalem, don't cry for me, cry for yourselves. You know, and the time will come when you say, blessed are the childless women, the breasts that never nursed, the wombs that never bore. And you'll say to the hills and the mountains, fall on us, right? The mountains can symbolize kings, a place where you connect to God. So the sanctuaries, by their actions, they say to the sanctuaries and the kings to destroy them. They say, give us Barabbas by their actions. By their actions, they channel and summon the devil, whether they see it that way or not. Okay? So those I cared for, those my ancestors trained in martial arts, and those people and their daughters, and some of them came out to be gorgeous, very beautiful women. Okay, the Lord is destroyed for betraying God by betraying me. The point in which you connect to God, the mountain, the king, hut, heart, essence, center, temple, core, the essence of a connection to God. In the Lord's hand, the king's heart is a stream of water that he channels to those who please him. Through me, the throne is established in righteousness. Don't rebel against the king. They've cheated me in reality. And I go beyond Martin Luther King. They've cheated the most pure and virtuous person ever after cheating anyone they saw like me at all for generations, for countless years, for thousands of years. And now God has destroyed. And when my flesh dies, that is it.